This is ROM, the Eurorack offshoot of Pladask's DRAUME reverb pedal. If you've seen my recent video on the Stereo Dradd, you'll know Pladask has a knack for taking familiar effects and breaking them into something far stranger. Think of this as the sister module, equally playable, equally unpredictable, and often best when patched together with Dradd for collapsing, unstable textures. At first glance, ROM looks like a reverb, but it's not about simulating concert halls or rooms. It's about building artificial spaces, dry, veiled, frozen, or broken. 3 algorithms drive it: hall, frame, and grain. Each one has its own personality, and each can be pushed way beyond what you'd expect from a normal reverb. You get hands-on control over decay, clock speed, random amplitude and frequency modulation, and TXT, a strange blend of low-pass filtering and digital grit. And because ROM runs in stereo, its randomness plays out differently in each channel, so you're always working with something that feels alive. Across this video, we'll explore the features of ROM in detail, and many of the patches we'll hear will be paired with the Stereo Dradd, since the two modules were clearly made to feed into each other's chaos. Together, they make a playground for broken echoes, smeared time, and artificial ambience. Let's take a very quick look around the front panel. Similar to Stereo Dradd, we've got stereo in and stereo out, and a summed mono out, which takes the left and right and sums them. Then we've got CV control over our 5 parameters: decay, frequency modulation, amplitude modulation, TXT, and clock. The CV inputs are take -5 to +5, and so with a knob central, -5 will take you there, and +5 will take you there. Okay, selector switch. Similar to Stereo Dradd, it selects between, it's a really nice feeling selector switch, it selects between a hall algorithm, which Pladask describes as an artificial, thinly veiled hall reverb. Maximum decay is approximately 10 minutes with the clock at noon. Same bass reverbs found in the DRAUME pedal. Frame algorithm, which is described as a truly sorry attempt at simulating a piano frame. It's a cold, lifeless decay, almost devoid of character and absolutely no pre-delay. At higher decay settings, it kind of gives a spectral freeze kind of reverb. And with decay set to minimum, the reverb disappears completely, giving you a clean access to frequency modulation and amplitude modulation. We'll try that in a patch later where we make the ROM sound a little bit like a tremoloed chorus. And then we've got our grain algorithm, which is a granular synthesizer performing random grain shuffling in combination with regenerated all-pass filters. It sounds a bit different than the grain algorithm on Stereo Dradd, which acts more like a standard granular synth, whereas what you get here is you kind of get smeared out, reverberated audio over time. And it makes the granulated reverb sound less restless as time goes on. Our 6 knobs. Mix simply controls wet or dry. Decay is the size of the reverb. AM is amplitude modulation, which is randomized left and right stereo. Similarly with frequency modulation, which acts as a vibrato effect. Clock controls the speed of the 2 spin FV1 chips, the digital signal processors inside the module. And TXT is it's a mixture between low pass filtering and digital distortion. To my ears, it gives a really pleasing type of distortion. It's applied after the reverb. We'll be hearing lots of that. In fact, we'll be hearing lots of all 3 of these effects all the way through the video. Okay, let's hear the algorithms. I've got a SH101 sequence, which I'm going to play. Let's start with the hall algorithm. I've got all of the modulation turned off. I've got clock at noon, decay low. Let's hear that hall algorithm. Turn up the decay. So you've got quite a pleasant ambient reverb there. Let's take the clock speed up. And then down. And then back to noon. Okay, let's introduce some frequency modulation. Really wobbly up there. That's nice, just subtle. And the amplitude modulation, let me just bring mix up to 50% so you can hear that. You can really hear the stereo effect there. Now let's add some of the TXT or texture effect. So there's that digital distortion, I love it. Okay, that's the Hall algorithm. Okay, let's look at frame. Now, if we turn decay right down, we can hear the vibrato there and the amplitude modulation in isolation. Then let's start to introduce the decay. Just turn our modulation off so we can hear the algorithm. So that's a cold, no pre-delay. Let's just compare that to Hall, which is much more traditional reverb than frame. Okay, let's reintroduce that modulation. And let's hear how textures feels. That's very crunchy. Clock up. Clock down. And that's the frame. Clock back to noon. And finally, let's hear the granular reverb. And this is going to sound much different. So you can hear there, it's like a granular synth but smeared out, just as the description had it. If I turn decay right down, if I turn clock low as well, there you can hear the grains being filtered out. Turn clock up high, and they filter out much quicker. I'm going to set it about there. Introduce some of the vibrato effect, turn up the decay, add some of that grit, and then the amplitude modulation. You can already hear, just from a quick walk around these algorithms, just how interesting and broken and distorted these reverbs sound. Really fun stuff. Okay. Let's look into some patches. Okay, for this patch, I'm going to show off the granular reverb and just how it can take a fairly simple sounding couple of synth patches and make things sound much more interesting and alive. And so this is the synth patch that I've got loaded on the Dreadbox Nymphes. It's quite nice. Sawtooth based patch, and I'm gonna run it in a arpeggio. But first, let's just hear how this patch sounds. So that's the dry sound, and that's the granular reverb. If I take the decay right down, it's almost that kind of, it swells up and down, it's kind of got an almost gated feel. And if you take the decay up, it's a lovely sound. And so if I then turn on the arpeggio, It's lovely, lovely washy reverb sound. I'm going to pair it with, I've sampled a synth into Torso S4 from Organelle. It's got kind of a granular feel itself. And let's just play around and arpeggiate on top of that. Let's listen to Elmyra drone through the Hall algorithm. Just playing Plaits on the Organelle. Once again, a little bit of noise from the S4. And then we've got a grain algorithm with a long decay. No texture. We've got enough from here for now. A little bit of modulation and some octave skipping tape from Dradd, but that's turned down quite low, so it's just there in the background. Just felt this was a nice vibe. So we're going to walk through this patch build together. I have on the Organelle a string patch from a DX7 library. Let me just play you a bit of that so you can hear it. Got the attack set quite low. And, excuse me, I am gonna get the frame algorithm to add a little bit of reverb to begin with. So let's see what that sounds like. Let's get mixed to about 50%. Let's pull up the decay. Okay, Now we're going to play with this a little bit to add lots and lots of texture and unpredictability, because we've got quite a predictable synth sound there. And so I'm actually going to use the Torso S4 as an effect here. The organelle's going into the Torso S4 and it's just acting like a live effect. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of noise. Just take that down to about 10%. It's one of my favorite aspects of the Torso is this noise. It's really satisfying. And I'm going to turn up the bit crush a little bit. Maybe just to about 7 or 8%. Pick it up a bit further. See if I was to take it right up, what happens. Just about there, so it's quite subtle. Okay, now we're going to add some texture from ROM. So we've got mix at about 50%. We've got it on the frame algorithm. Going to add some frequency modulation. Give it a little bit of tape wobble. Very nice. And some amplitude modulation. Now I want the amplitude modulation to be quite subtle because I don't want it to sound too stuttery. That's great. Now, texture. Again, I'm going for subtlety here. Pull down the crush a little bit there because it's accentuating it a little bit. And now that I'm happy with that, let's just try the texture on a little bit more. I'm happy with that. You can just hear a little overdriven there. Now I'm going to push the decay right up. Now I'm going to take it to full and I'm just going to roll it off a little bit so you'll find things are held. But not forever. Really nice because you get this kind of unpredictable feeling to the string sound. Now, see what happens when I change key, or hear what happens when I change key. Really satisfying. So I'm going to push the decay up a little bit. It's kind of eerie, and that unpredictability that we're getting from the crush, the noise, the texture, the amplitude modulation is really adding to it. Just going to play this one for a bit. I apologise for the amount of polysynth chord patches that I'm running through ROM, but I just think they sound great. We are going to just turn everything down and remove the modulation. What I want to do here is take this Nymphes patch. So let me just play the sequence. So we're just running through some really pretty sawtooth patch chords, which are lovely, but they do kind of sound static. And so if I just turn amplitude modulation, frequency modulation all the way down, clock is at about 1:32 p.m, so quite bright sounding. And I'm just going to take texture down as well. And so here we've got the frame algorithm, the one that simulates a piano frame. And you can just hear there how it sounds as a basic reverb. Now I think frame and texture go together really well, frame and TXT. So a reminder, this is low pass filtering and digital distortion after the reverb. And so now we're going to add some amplitude modulation and some frequency modulation. Now, what I want to actually do is I want that amplitude modulation to be modulating in and out. Same with the frequency modulation. So I've got a couple of sine waves here from Pam's. Into their set, the size of the waves is set to about 40 or 50%. So it's modulating frequency modulation through there to about there. Same with the amplitude modulation. Pam's is positive voltage. Go a little bit beyond noon in the mix, so the reverb's just a little bit heavier. Pull up the decay a little bit, and then I'm going to just pull in some light octave tape skips from Dradd as well. You can see I've got recursive looping on there, so it gives a little bit of a shimmer when it goes up an octave. Having spent some time with it, what makes ROM so powerful is how it transforms stillness. Feed it something flat, a simple tone, dry loop, just a pad, and it breathes movement into it. Random amplitude flickers, clock drift, granular smearing. Every parameter conspires to animate the signal, make it unstable, restless and alive. Where Stereo Dradd excels at bending and collapsing audio that's already full of motion, ROM shines when you start with less. It takes the static and makes it dynamic, turning absence into presence, turning simple inputs into complex textures. Together, the two modules are like mirrors pointed at each other. Feedback, reverberation, and chaos folding endlessly in on themselves. But even on its own, ROM proves that reverb doesn't have to be about simulating real spaces. It can be about inventing new ones. Spaces that never existed. Thank you for watching.